Hi everybody, my name is Heidi Postle. Welcome back to A+ Maths. This is a video that I'm doing as a continuation of other videos for number plane or coordinate geometry, and today's lesson will be on parallel and perpendicular lines. I have a sheet of rules on coordinate geometry and there are 11 rules in total that you need to know. The rules that we'll be doing today are rules number 5 and 6, parallel lines and perpendicular lines. We need to know that if two lines are parallel, they have the same gradient, m1 equals m2. And if two lines are perpendicular, which means that they're at right angles to each other, then we know that they have gradients that multiply to give -1. m1 times m2 equals -1. There aren't really very many questions they can ask you on parallel and perpendicular lines. They're either going to tell you that two lines are parallel, and then you have to find the equation of a line, or they're going to ask you to prove that lines are parallel or perpendicular. So let's have a look at that. Remembering that parallel lines have the same gradient, perpendicular lines have gradients that multiply to give -1. Are the two lines y equals 3x minus 1 and x plus 3y equals 6 parallel? Well, we know that they're parallel if they have the same gradient. So we need to find the gradient of each line. And the easiest way to find the gradient of each line is to put it in the form y equals mx plus c. So here's our first line, y equals 3x minus 1. We know that if it was in the correct form, y equals mx plus or minus c, or b, whatever letter you like to use, then our c must be -1 and our m must be 3. So the gradient of this line is 3. Our other line is x plus 3y equals 6. Of course, that's not in the right form. We can't just look at the number in front of the x and say that the gradient of that is 1. We're not allowed to do that. Don't forget that. It's a very common mistake. The first thing we have to do is to rearrange it and make y the subject, or in layman's terms, make y equals. I'm going to move the x to the other side, and that's going to become minus x. I like to put it first because I want it in the form mx plus b. If you want to put the 6 minus x and then rearrange it, that's fine too. And then I need to divide everything by 3. So that's a 1 over 3, and that's a 6 over 3. So I have minus a third x, plus 6 divided by 3 is 2, so I know minus a third. Are the two lines parallel? Well, we've got m1 equals 3, and m2 equals minus a third. Therefore, the lines are not parallel because they are not equal. Lines are not parallel. Let's have a look at number 2. Write down the equation of the line parallel to y equals minus 2x plus 5. We know that if lines have to be parallel to each other, they have to have the same gradient. So, this is in the right form, y equals mx plus c. And so I know that my gradient here is -2. Now they've asked me to write down the equation of a line. They haven't told me which line. So this is what we would call an open-ended question. You better get used to these. I can write down the equation of any line. We know that that can be y equals mx plus c. Any line as long as it has that as the gradient, because we want the lines to be parallel. And parallel lines have the same gradient. So I can write down y equals minus 2x. Now the lines are parallel. And I could write down minus 2x. Or I could write down minus 2x plus 1. You could pick anything you like. Y equals minus 2x minus 3. Y equals minus 2x. You could have y equals minus 2x plus 4. You can pick whatever constant you like, as long as your gradient is -2. It said write down the equation of a line, not a particular line, any line. So I've got lots of different answers that are possible. Let's have a look at number 3. Are these two lines perpendicular? Again, we know that perpendicular lines have gradients that multiply to give -1. So all we need to do is to find the gradients. Don't make it complicated. We have the first line, which is y equals 5x minus 1. We know that the gradient is 5. And we have the second line, which is x plus 5y equals 3. Of course, it's in the wrong form. So let's rearrange it. 5y equals minus x plus 3. Divide everything by 5 plus 3 over 5. And so the gradient of this line is negative 1 over 5. I can call that one M1 and that one M2 because they're different. We don't want to call them the same letter, that gets confusing. Now we need to show that these are perpendicular or not. So let's have a look. We know that if they're perpendicular, then we need to get M1 times M2 equals minus 1. So let's see what M1 times M2 actually is. M1 is 5 and M2 is minus 1 over 5. So we know that 5 times that, remember that that's over 1. You can use your calculator or do it in your head using your fractions. 5 times minus 1 is minus 5 over 5, which equals minus 1. Therefore, the lines are perpendicular. The only other types of questions that you can really get in these is finding the equation of a line, which I hope to do in a different video. Well, that brings us to the end of parallel and perpendicular lines. It's a pretty quick lesson. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe below. See you next time.